What's up, hooligans? Jay Hooligan here.
Hooligan V.
I'm gonna kill that. I gotta figure out a better way to do it, but yes, welcome to another live lunch. And what's today?
Thursday.
It's Thursday. Man, it's already what is it? Friday Eve. Is this how we call it?
Pre-Friday.
Friday Eve. Take your pick on whichever one you want to call it. It's
Thursday.
been Thursday. I guess that's the best way to say it. It's been a man. It feels like it's been a long week.
It has been a long week.
It has been a long week. Still feeling that that drag from
last
week, last month.
I think this was the first week though. Like we actually had more time to actually do more of like script stuff. Like actually had time to do script stuff.
Yeah.
Because we've just been like, like all the mechanics, right? All the like breaking down stuff, or you've been editing, you know.
Yep.
Stuff like that. Not like. I guess it's more creative this week.
Yeah, we got to get touch base with creative again. I also started teaching classes again too, so that was kind of fun or attending classes and we teaching classes again.
That's fun, yeah.
Tonight, but and so. If you like what we do, before we get started, you can support us down in the links down below in our description. our Patreon, patreon.com/HideHooliganFilms, or you get any one of our RPG IRL shirts at thewanderingkillsman.com/shop. So,
Look at that's so cool.
what's that? The Necromancer, yeah. It's one of my favorites. This is another one of my favorites. Rogue and Necromancer are my two favorite shirts.
The best part is being able to train, and have these on.
Yeah. Okay, so today's subject is, all right, a little bit of a background. If it's like, why should we listen to you guys? Well, we do heavy analysis on a lot of stuff, not just script analysis through film school or film analysis from watching tons of films from every different era of the of film. But we also have been down to AFM, which is the American Film Market, and eavesdropped the hell out of a lot of these deal sessions that have gone on, just to see what people were talking about. Because if you don't know what happens at AFM, they rent out, what is like 1.5 hotels.
Is it 1.5, or I thought it was 2?
It's 2, but not all of the second one was all much more. There's only certain parts of the second one. So they rented out, I forget what hotel it was, down in Santa Monica.
It's like right on the pier, or right near the pier.
Right near the pier. And they rented out the entire hotel, where practically every single room was converted into an office. Mm-hmm. And it was all open, and it's floor by floor. It was like 8 floors.
Dude,
and all the doors were open. Yeah, every single door was open.
Unless they weren't there.
Yeah, unless they weren't there.
Or they were doing deals.
Or they were doing deals, so yeah.
Some deals, they were open though.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's like they had a little lobby up front, and if they were doing deals, they'll go in the back. They'll have like a little partition. Some of them would.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yep. So even if they had deals going on, they had all the doors open, and so you would literally just wait outside in the hallway and listen to everybody try to pitch their stuff. There was even a group lounge area where people were doing that.
That was the year that when we went. I think, was it Netflix? No, it wasn't Netflix. One of the studios wasn't there, even though they had rented out rooms already.
That we were looking. No. We were looking for A24.
A24. That's right, because they were doing deals with Apple.
Yep, that deal. We actually thought about that too when we were there. Like, well, they're not here. They was like, yeah, hey guys, we're gonna be there, and then we were like, oh, they're not here. It's like, I wonder if something was going down, like they were doing deals. Sure enough, it was like a month or 2 later. It was something either on IndieWire or Deadline or something like that. They're like, oh, they just dropped this huge deal of like, it was like 7 movies.
Yeah. A
7-movie deal with Apple.
It's a couple billion, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, but
I enjoy A24's story though, and that's why I kind of wanted to go see them. It's
because
they started with 2 people and they just grew really big, right? And they're based out of New York, I think.
New York. Yeah. So that's where we got to do, and again, as completely green, distributors at that point, like we already knew the filmmaking process and what we only touched base upon that in film school just a little bit about distribution. It's like, just get distributed, which really didn't help at all. So we had to go out there and learn. We took a few systems and did webinars, classes, try to find books on it. There's not many books on it. But yeah, it's more just like touching base with a lot of people. There were certain training programs out there, and then we went down to AFM and just like, hey, what the hell do we do? And we literally went floor by floor and room by room to talk to every single distributor or buyer. That's technically it out there. What's up?
Is it playing?
I sure hope so. Is it?
Oh wait, I guess I could check on here.
Yeah, we went to every single buyer. Just to see what they were about. And it was funny because they have a certain personality, right? These buyers are like sharks, they're very straightforward. They want to know certain things about your story of your film. And usually when you're going to a film market, you already have a film and you're trying to sell the film and get it distributed. So that's where it kind of differs from, say, their acquisitions department. Even though they're kind of the same, they're acquiring that to sell it, to distribute. Their acquisitions department might be the people. Was it acquisitions? Was it that they would always direct us to?
Yep.
Yeah,
they would only drop in on certain days.
Yeah,
because most of them you would have to reach out to individually and set up meetings.
Yeah, so the acquisitions department would actually be the ones that say, hey, if you want to co-produce or to get funding or whatever, you'd have to talk to them, not the buyers that were actually at the film market. So something to think about when you go to film markets. Doesn't mean you can't go with an idea to pitch, but just be aware that they might not be looking to, or you might not be speaking to the right people when you're there making your pitch.
It's more back end.
Yeah, it's more back end for that. And then again, but if you do go to that, they can redirect you to the correct person, so you will have somebody you can talk to.
But it's still good, like, to network with people, you know?
Absolutely.
We met some other, like, indie filmmakers, that one girl.
Yeah,
Really cool.
yeah, I mean,
and you get tips and tricks, so.
Yeah, tips and tricks and stuff like that, and we still get, I actually got a pitch for a script from one of the guys right then.
Somebody pitched to you while you were there?
No, I'm talking about, like, just like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Oh.
And I felt bad because I totally forgot about it. Like, I apologize.
I get that.
Like, we've been so busy with everything, but still getting pitches from people like that, from writers that we met over there.
People have sent me, like, books, like their own books that they publish, you know?
Mm-hmm. So, one of the stories that we've heard it more than once, but one of the big stories, the first time that we heard it, I remember we were going down, because we started at the top. I think it was like whatever, I think it was 8 levels.
Did we start at the top? I thought we started at the bottom.
No, we did not start. The bottom was all like mostly lounge stuff. So we went, and we were like, I don't know, let's go visit this, let's go visit that. They were like, you know what? Let's just go top down, and we went to every single room.
I think like the first day we were a little like disoriented, and then like we came up with a system.
Yep.
And the next day we went in and we just killed
just
it.
like every room we split up, and we're like, hey, every single person do it, and then certain distributing companies out there, certain buyers out there were like, hey, we want to meet all together so we can get just an overall view of companies that we were interested in talking to. But in some of those ones where we were walking together, at least before we split up and we're talking to people, we got to hear a lot of things, and we started, analyzing just like we do, and picked up on some of these things that was funny, because we would ask these things whenever people would pitch to us, and we're like, oh, okay, so there was a theme over the next couple days that we were there. We started to see if that was real, and sure enough, every single thing that we would ask for
other filmmakers,
from other filmmakers when they're pitching their story, this is what it's like. Oh, there is a theme to it, and what buyers are looking for, what producers are looking for. And I guess it's a little bit off to say what producers are looking for, but it's still relatively the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's why I put it that way, is because, we're producers. Whenever
how are you
we're
going to
asking,
sell the story if you can't answer those big questions, right? So
Yeah.
think about it. In the beginning part of filmmaking, being as a producer, right, you need to be able to answer certain questions about your story. And then on the back end of producing and distributing, you also need to be able to answer those questions so that they're able to sell it. And as a producer, you need to know marketability and sellability of the film, which you would take to distributors so that they can feel like the risk is mitigated, knowing that, oh, okay, you know all these things about your film, you're very into it, and you can sell that,
Absolutely. So that's why a lot of people, a lot of indies that we've come across, right? They don't understand what producers do. They really don't. They think like, oh, they're there, they have the creative control, they have everything. Like, no, technically, they have some creative control, but they're relying. And there's different producers, but they have some creative control. They do have their own vision, and when they're just start pitching and hiring and stuff like that. So there is some creative control on that. However, they're basing it off of the crew, the director, the DP, and everybody they hire to get on. That's why I think there was that thing where it was like Tarantino's like, yeah, your only job as a director is to hire, your crew. And I'm like, no, you don't hire a crew, bro.
Weird.
You're a director. Yeah.
Tarantino said that?
Yeah.
That's really weird for him to say that.
You need to hire your crew to make your vision come true. I'm like, dude, yeah. If you're like an auteur director that everybody freaking knows and wants to work with, I guess you have that sort of,
pull.
Influence. But, that sort of pull. But that's not how
No, but at the same time, I kind of get what he's trying to say, because some directors will bring their own people in. Do you remember us talking about that?
I get that. But again, I get that. Where it's like, if you have the crew with it, but at the same time, the one hiring them is still the producer.
The one hiring them, yes. But director can bring in people like, hey, I suggest this person or I suggest this person because they see my vision.
But that's the difference. That's suggestions, and you can make those suggestions because based off of your previous work. Hey, I worked with this DP. I know they work very, very, very well. I work well with them, and we can get a good synergy with them. That's different. So that may not be the case. Oh, well, I can afford you, Mr. Director, but I cannot afford your crew at the same time. So it's either one or the other. Like
sometimes you can make a deal,
and sometimes you can make a deal, but they are not hiring. That was a weird thing that Tarantino said.
They're not hiring. That's correct.
It's convoluted. That's why it becomes very convoluted in trying to understand what a producer does and what a director does, etc., etc. But unless the director is a producer, which Tarantino does constantly, so I felt like he's mixing the roles up in there, and he wasn't very clear. Yeah, that's where you get, people that get this weird idea of, oh, the director hires. Like, no. The producers hire. Anyway, totally roundabout, anecdotal thing.
Line producers hire.
Line producers hire, to be specific on there. But it really comes down to, like I said, when you're trying to sell your film, trying to get distributed, there are, at least 3 main things that we picked up. And there are other things that they will ask, but the 3 main ones that we heard from practically everybody, right? The 3 main traits at first was, how much was it made for your film? Who's in it? How much is it made for? And what genre? And that was it. Those are the 3 main traits that they get. The big one that we heard as well, which what we're going to talk about, was like those were the 3 questions for it. But the big one is something they don't really ask straight out, but we picked up on, which is our subject for today. So I have a film idea. Well, what's the story? And we've heard it in many, many different ways, which is why, like I said, it wasn't necessarily something that was asked straight out. But those 3 things they would ask for sure out loud, like, hey, how much was it made for? Who's in it, and what genre is it? Because if it's a multi-genre, hey, it's an action, sci-fi, comedy, supernatural, dark genre, whatever. They're like, no, they don't want it. They want genre films. They want something that's specific, because then they can gauge, hey, a drama will do well in, say, Japan with this actor or actress attached to it, or if it's an unknown, an indie company, it's a horror film with a bunch of unknowns, but it was made for, say, $250,000, so production value has gone up. They can sell that to certain audiences because there's a very good audience for horror, right? So they can gauge it. That's their whole job when they're trying to buy and distribute certain films, is audience engagement. How many people can I sell it to? And a lot of indies forget that.
It's right? Mitigating risk.
It is absolutely mitigating risk.
It's with any other business too.
Yeah, any other business as well. But aside from that, like I said, those 3 big ones, they do ask you right out. The last one is something they don't. Like I said, we've heard it in different ways. Right? What's it about? Tell me what is it? One of them, or a few of them, do just ask out flat out, because after they hear the pitch, at least this is kind of going back to where I'm trying to keep track of where I was. I remember we were walking down a hall and somebody was pitching out there, and someone's like, well, literally just straight out, well, what's the story? And the guy, and we were passing by, as we were passing, I think we were taking a break.
Are you talking about the same guy that Dave and I heard? Because
yeah,
the one who was pitching, because we were in the... No,
there were 2. Because the first one happened when we were walking up, and I think we're at one of the higher levels, and we're going to chill out around the corner, because we're like, okay, we just had gone through that whole stint of...
we're around the corner,
and we heard it, and... Oh, no, I'm sorry. That one was, he was asking, like, well, what's the story? And he was just getting done with his story, but he's like, but that's not a story. His was, who's the antagonist? But it was still about what's the story for it. And the guy was like, but it's all internal. It's internal. His story is internal. And it was like, but that's but you haven't pitched anything that's.
I don't remember that one.
I do. That was the first one. The second one that you're talking about was Flat Out.
You didn't really hear that one.
I was talking to. Yeah, I think I was talking to somebody else. But I cut the latter half of it. But you told me like one of the producers that they were pitching to.
She got up and left.
She just got up and left. Yeah.
Because she kept asking him, "What's the story?" And he couldn't answer. And he would just keep repeating himself, and she kept asking him the same thing, "What's the story?" And it just was a cycle. And at some point, she got up and left.
Yeah.
And I think her other producing partner he stayed behind and tried to talk to him, but it's like the writer couldn't get across the story, even though he's like, "Oh, I already wrote a book." You know.
Oh, he was a writer.
He was a writer.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that he had already wrote a book and he published it, but the producer didn't get the story. And when she kept asking him the question, he couldn't answer it. He kept repeating, "Well, it's about this person." And you can have like a character and character backstory, but what's the story of the movie, right?
Yep. And writing a book, it's a very different medium. You're essentially having your audience member, for the most part, your person who's reading, your reader, is your director. They are the one imagining and having this vision. That's why people really get into books. That's why I got into books. That's why a lot of people get into books. Is that it stimulates your imagination through written work. Okay, that's its job. That's its medium. Film is different. You have to be able to transfer that idea into a visual, oral medium for people to enjoy. That's exactly what it is. That's why film and books, are different mediums. And whenever people compare the two, it's like, you really don't know. Just let the audience. That's audience member like just complaining to complain.
They're like, whatever. Well, this didn't happen in the book, or I didn't like this because the book was better. But honestly, books are more your own interpretation, and movies are interpretations of somebody else.
Thank you.
I always have to reiterate that with a lot of people.
Yeah. But going back to that whole idea of what is the story, if you're reading certain things with, say, internal thoughts, you don't necessarily get that in a film. Now, that doesn't mean that doesn't happen, where people don't do like the narration where you can hear internal thoughts. But
did they
again,
do that in Twilight?
I don't know. I didn't finish Twilight. It's very hard for me to not finish a film, and I've watched a ton of horrible B movies. But that one, I got like 30, 45 minutes, and I'm like, this is straight garbage. Sorry. No.
Did you watch it in theaters?
No, I rented it. I was like, no, I don't like the stigma that was around it, for one, and then it got around to like, I was like, okay, everyone keeps talking about this. Let me try. I'm going to be open and try, and just let me see. I want to see it. And I was like, I can't. It just was. I never finished it. I have no idea how it ends. It's terrible.
There are some movies, like even that movies
I heard
that
it gets
we pay
better
for,
because of the other sequels and stuff. But
that we just get up and leave because we cannot watch it anymore.
No. And like I said, it's very, very hard for us because we've sat through weekend.
You make a lot of noise.
That's what we started doing our
commentary
live reviews, what we used to do, and where we would actually play the movie and just have the camera on us, and we'd literally just go off on it. It's like, it was almost like our own Mystery Science Theater 3000, our unofficial, because again, we weren't
Hooligan 2000,
huh? Hooligan 2000, something like that. Yeah,
we enjoy having other people on there too.
Yeah,
that one in a while actually.
No,
we did Snyder.
Yeah, well, that was kind of like a post. It wasn't really live.
Yeah.
But yeah, we used to do those on. It was Facebook Live. Is what we used to do. But yeah. Anyways, kind of going back to this whole idea of pitching your story and storytelling, as an art form. Okay. When it came down to it, it was like, all right, what's the story? And from an audience perspective, like I said, think of it from even just that misconception of like, well, the book was better. Okay, well, like Hooligan V just said, the film is a director's vision of it, and whether they can entertain with it, that's a whole other story. Now, if you've made a film like that, again, whole other story. Will it entertain? And then because these buyers, these distributors are looking to sell, that's their job, they will acquire films that will sell. So, when it really comes down to it, when they want to know what the story is, okay? A premise is not a story. Let's put it that way. And now there are different interpretations of what a premise is. read a ton of these books, and for right now, it's like they're all kind of eluding me, right now, just what it was. One that's always stuck out to me is a premise is a basis of a story, and it is a what if scenario. What if, what if there was this one magical ring to rule them all, right? What if a scientist created a recreated dinosaurs based off of DNA that was preserved in sap, tree sap.
Chesapeake.
Yes. See, so you see what I'm saying? So a premise, that is a premise, that is not a story. And a lot of people that were pitching were trying to, but it's the idea, it's the concept of it. It's like, no, they want to know what the story is, because what if they did that? Great. Those are what we call like the rules of the universe,
You're
right?
bringing back the chocolate story to my head, and you're...
Oh, tell the chocolate story. Tell the chocolate story. Yes, tell it.
I remember doing. It was our first. Was it our first No, it wasn't our first comedy. But
it was our first
after,
romantic comedy.
It was right after that, and we were all holding a meeting because it was like, what was it like? What do they call them? Meetup, right?
Yeah, when Meetup was big.
We were doing that, so the film stuff, and so after filming our first romantic comedy, we all got together with some other new filmmakers, and because I had produced that romantic comedy, and the main guy kind of pointed me out as the producer, after our meeting was done, I got approached by a lot of people, and one of the guys was just like, there's this really good story that I have, and he's like, it's about this chocolate. And
no, it was about a kid, first he said.
Is it about a kid?
It was about a kid.
Poor kid, right?
It was a poor kid and a rich kid.
And then he said something about I don't remember. It was something about, I just remember it being chocolate. He's like, it's something about the chocolate, and it signifies this.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. All right.
Oh, so you remember, you tell it.
What did you tell? Because it was, you're
That's
the
all
one who's
I remember.
And I was eavesdropping because I was like, I was trying to go back and forth with people, but I was like right there anyway.
I remember him saying that the chocolate had.
It had
some
to be, yeah.
Significance.
It was, yeah.
But that's all he was telling me. But he wouldn't tell me what the story was.
Yeah, because there was no story. It was supposed to be. It was all about getting the chocolate. It was like, okay.
Was it about getting chocolate? No, it's from chocolate being significant.
Significant. The chocolate. It's about the chocolate.
Important about the chocolate.
The chocolate. And it was like, I don't get.
All I don't care. Is a shoe, a boy, and chocolate.
Oh, I don't even remember the shoe.
I remember a shoe. Maybe it was a shoe.
So that was the thing. Again, it's like, So whenever you hear us talk about it, it's the chocolate. It's that. What do they call it? Not a mulligan. I can't think of the stupid name.
Motif?
Nope, not a motif.
Motif is audio, right?
Leitmotif, yeah, is the like an oral theme that you hear for, but no, there's I can't think right now.
I don't know what it is.
My brain's a little fried still. Just it's recovering, but there's something. It's the whole idea of like there's this overall goal. It's a concept. It's the idea. That's what they're going after.
I mean, it's good to have a goal.
The story.
It's good that the character would have a goal, but what's the story to get to that goal, right? 'Cause
yeah.
Stories are like, your character has a goal, and then these are the obstacles that they go through to get to that goal. But sometimes their goal will change, or something will, happen.
Well, yeah, and again, that depends on what the story is. So having a premise or having a concept of what your story is based out of, right? Is your story about? Is it based in this world? Is it based in? Is it based in an alien world? Is it based in a world where magic exists?
So that's world
building. Those are rules. World building, and rules of the universe. This is why I talk about this a lot, and why it's important for people, especially if they're trying to pitch an idea, to understand this. Having a what if, having a concept, or, and we've had this happen more than once.
Are you bringing up what I think you're going to bring up?
Partly, yes. Is when you have this idea where these indie filmmakers base an entire movie off of a moment. And it's like, well, I had this vision. Great, you had a vision of this moment, and I see this moment, and everything culminates around this moment. This is exactly the chocolate all over again. and people don't realize that. These indies don't realize that, and we've spent a lot of time trying to literally like pull teeth to go like, but what's the story?
Well, trying to help them.
Well, trying to help them to get it,
or teach them. Like
we've done classes.
What you need to do, like
Yep.
trying to push them in the right direction so that they can get their stuff, their film up or their
Yep.
story done, so they can start filming.
Yep.
Doing
it the right way, because they're like, oh well, I've already got resources. Okay, but you don't even have the story down. What resources? Well, it's just based around this one idea that I have that's going to center around this one thing, and it's like, again, you're too narrow focused on this, and you're not understanding what. And this is anywhere from pilots, people pitching us for pilots for series, to feature films, to even short films. Now, short films you get a little more leeway, because those can be moments. That's fine, but basing an entire feature film or an entire series off of a single moment, that's that idea, like I said, where indies there's this weird stigma where a lot of indie filmmakers think that movies are just a series of moments, and I think that gets confused, because I think even David Mamet had mentioned something like that. It's just different moments in there, but he had mentioned that where it's different moments strung together in an overarching theme or overarching story or plot. Those moments help build to that. That's what he's trying to say. There are moments in it, but you do not try to pitch an entire story, especially if you're in the development phase or even pre-production phase, where you're trying to bring in investors or bring in another production company or whoever, literally based off of a concept. That's what happened to Ryan Reynolds with Green Lantern, and that was horrible for his career.
I'm not gonna lie, and that goes based off that, right?
Mm-hmm.
People have done it. They've raised funds
That's
based
true.
off a premise, but look where it lands them afterwards. Like, really pay attention to the back end of how that movie goes.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a big thing. And another thing that I like to do with moment, because like I get it, I get seeing moments and you're just like so attached to it and you really want to do it, is I write them down.
Mm-hmm.
And then I figure out how can I put this into a story.
Yep.
Or what story, and then use it,
Yep. So trying to develop story becomes a much bigger endeavor. Your premise, it's like that flash of inspiration that we have. What if, what if a cartoon princess goes into the real world? That's a premise. It's all based around that. That could be, and in fact, when that happens in that movie, that's Enchanted, if you don't know. That's called an inciting incident. Something throws them into that. That's not the entire story, though. Okay? Now, when you're developing and pitching a story, again, you say, I got an elevator pitch, I got this, and you're the art of the log line, right? A log line is like a one sentence, no more than 35 words-ish description of your film and your story, so people can go like, oh, well, that sounds interesting. That's a concept of what your story is based off of, right? But you're still relaying certain information in that good log line. Relay certain information. Who's the protagonist? Who's the antagonist? What world is it in, right? And what's the conflict? Those are the four main things for log line that you really want to get in there. And if that's not in there and it's too vague, people are like, well, I don't know what the hell that is, and then they'll move on. Guess what? You try to do that to a buyer, they're going to move on. Absolutely.
People who walk out on you.
Yeah, people will walk out on you, literally. And we've been, we've gotten to the point where we're getting very close to that point where we're just going to start walking out. Like, we were getting hundreds of pitches, and I think I wrote an article about this where even on LinkedIn, there's so many people that just throw, random people. I have no idea who they are. Hey, I'm a screenwriter. Here's the entire plot of my story. Didn't establish anything. I have no idea who they are. No idea of their credits. No idea who,
This may not answer them.
Yeah. I don't answer about 99% of my messages, and it's really turned me off to actually doing it, which is bad because now I don't even check my LinkedIn messages, and it's terrible. I'm sorry. But,
I like
yeah.
to say that I'm very much like our mentor, where I'm just like,
yeah, and I feel bad because I like to try to, respond to as many people as I can, but I've literally gotten, like, hundreds of messages from a lot of people, that are trying to pitch their ideas. Even
And,
people that
well,
I've
it's
mentioned even before,
time-consuming.
it is very time consuming. But even people that who are asking me like, "Hey, will you invest in a film?" Like, dude, we're not an investment company. And nope, hey, I got another film. Will you invest in this film? Like, you know what? I'm not even gonna talk.
on
I'm
the
not even gonna
people
talk to you
that you're
anymore.
going to pitch to,
Yep, absolutely.
and what you need from them.
Yeah, but really comes down to, again, what is your story? Now, again, there are certain things. Your log line is your first. It's like you can see a light off in the distance. Hey, what is that light? You know. Then you get down to like a one page, and a one page is just just a real short breakdown. Like, hey, this is a little bit more in depth, and then you get into your synopsis, and your one page can be your synopsis, which is like, okay, that's your pitch when you're going to pitch certain things, and you go, hey, are you interested in a log line of, say, this is a horror film based in Georgia, and with I don't know, like a killer clown. Oh, sorry, we don't do horror. So, all right, move on. See what I mean? First line of defense that you got. It's first line of defense for everybody is that log line. And then you go further into your synopsis. They go, oh, yes, we do horror. What is it? I'd like to hear more about it. Then you do your synopsis, right? Those are your pitches, and you usually do more. There's more of a finesse to it, but that's a
Well,
general
usually,
idea.
like I said, it goes back to researching who you're going to send your pitch to. I mean, you could send a pitch of horror stuff to somebody who doesn't usually do horror, because maybe they're trying to break into it. But it's really knowing that, and when you message these people, you need to like do that research on them and make sure that your email is tailored to them, versus some copy paste.
If you're doing,
copy paste,
yeah, if you're doing query letters, that is, but even if it's in person, because we've had a lot of pitches thrown down to us. Yeah, a lot of pitches that are thrown out to us in person, and honestly, like and again, there was a learning curve for us, or trying to understand, like, hey, there are certain people that we won't work with anymore, because it's like they're so narrow sighted on the chocolate. That's it. They're so narrow sighted on the chocolate that they can't get past okay, well, what else is there? Right? Granted, that was a short, like I said, short films can probably get a little bit of a pass, but even still, even in our mindset back then, it was still the same. What's the story? What you're trying to tell? If you can't tell us what it's about, then there's a big problem. You don't have a story, and I'm not saying like you need to give us like how does it start? What's every single detail of the entire story. That's what your script is for, okay? But you should have a synopsis ready. Right, you should have a synopsis, which is beginning, middle, end of what happens in your story, right? And then again, based off a log line, if a producer likes it, then based off a synopsis, if the producer likes it, then they'll ask for a script, and they'll usually have your script. And this is more of an indie way to do it, because when you get into the big studios, you will usually have what they call like the gatekeepers and their readers. So the readers will actually read it and then do an analysis on it, which we do script analysis, and we have our own proprietary versions of it, which is much more extensive, at least in our opinion. It's much more extensive than what we've seen out there, because it gets into, say, like, hey, how well did it world build? What did you violate the rules of the universe? All these sort of things that we talk about from the back end of writing. We wanted to try to address those certain things when it comes to, like, hey, how do we translate from from development, an idea, story, in written word, to actual physical production to have it be made. There is a process to it.
Well,
and
it's
they're
like,
different. They're very different.
I don't know, when it comes to the like producing, like I know, like after reading a lot of scripts, like I can read a script and be like, okay, I can see how much this is gonna cost, a generalized idea, or I can see how much it's gonna take to do this, or how many days, just based off reading it. I get a generalized idea off of that.
Yep.
And when you don't have a story or you don't have a script, it's like half a script, half butt. I almost cussed. Half butt. It's hard.
Half-butted.
It's hard to determine those factors, especially when, you have people who are pushing like, yeah, I can still make this film. I'm like, how are you gonna make this film if your script isn't even complete? You know, how are you going to base your numbers? How are you going to base how many casts? How are you going to base how many locations? You know, how are you going to sell this? You know, based off half a script.
Yeah, guys. There are so many people that will literally do the talk, and that's it. It's a whole. It's talk big, yes, and it's like, hey, it's great. You sound motivated. You sound like you got a lot of energy. You sound like you're gonna follow through. Sound like you're doing it. Where's the walk? Where's the walk? Where you do this all the time?
I haven't done it in a while, actually.
You haven't done it in a while.
It's reminding me.
Yeah. She used to do this to me all the time, where it's like, hey, I got an idea for this, and she's like, which is essentially, where's the script? And I was like, I know, I got it. So then when I hand over the script, it's like, oh, she's like, it's gold.
Well, because think about it, as a producer, I can't move forward without the script, so I'm very...
Everything starts with a script in film. If you do, great, you have an idea, you have a concept,
you have a location.
Great, if you have a story, yeah, great, you have a location,
but what
great,
are you
you have actors, but what's the story? What are they doing? Oh, well, it's based off a concept. I don't care what the concept is. I want to know what the story is.
Nonprofits, so we're using local people. I'm like, that's great. It's all good
that's
stuff.
Fantastic.
But what's the story?
What are they doing? That you're just gonna congregate on set and be like, okay, guys, we're just gonna act natural.
And
that's the concept. It's just
what
acting natural, and yeah, you don't know what's gonna happen. Neither do I, because there's no script.
It's improv.
Improv is different,
it's
though.
Improv, cast and crew.
Yes,
you remember the people who would like change camera halfway through? Like it would just be like a stick shot, and then it'd be like readjust in the middle of camera rolling.
Jump? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've seen that stuff. Oh,
same with lighting.
Now there is a stylized way to do that where you will turn on different lights for
yes, but if it's not,
I get what you're saying. Anyways, but it does still come down to story, and what are you trying to convey? Again, having a premise of what if this scenario, great. That's still the basis of it. If you don't have a script, you don't have a story, and a producer, especially if you're trying to get either funding, or a producer to fund it, or to bring in an EP to fund it, or to produce it and actually make it a reality, right? If you don't have a script, you have zero. Everything starts with that script in film. Okay?
It's kind of like that guy that I was telling you about the other day.
Which one?
When I was at the store, and he approached me, can you buy this for me?
Oh!
You know? And then it's like, no. And then it's like, can I ask why not?
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
it's like that with some filmmakers, where it's like, oh, can you pay for me to make this story? No, because there's nothing there. Can I ask why not? Because there's nothing there.
Yep, and the ego gets in the way a lot of times for this stuff, and that's the problem. You know, I mean, film and entertainment is a highly egotistical medium, regardless, but that's why you got to be much more vigilant, excuse me, as indies, to keep yourself in check, right? Being able to take feedback and having a tough enough skin to be like, okay, it's not necessarily a personal attack on you. If that's the thing, it really comes down to like when people are straightforward and you get shot down, and you take it personally because, oh well, this is my idea, it's mine. It's like, but it's just an idea. It's not the whole embodiment of you. That doesn't even make sense.
Constructive criticism.
Well,
right?
It depends. Somebody may just be like, no, it's terrible. What's so wrong with someone telling, no, it's terrible? They're not saying you're terrible, unless you're throwing a tantrum or just and then there are people that do that. It's like, oh, you're a terrible person. That's actually attacking you. But if they're talking about your body of work that you have, it is not a personal thing. Hey, this is horrible. There is no cohesiveness. There is no story. The characters are flat, or they don't have any. They don't have any growth, or they don't have any direction, and they're all over the place. There's nothing wrong. That's called criticism.
Constructive criticism.
It's constructive criticism if you give it in a way that they can actually build off of it. But there's deconstructive criticism that's like, it's just horrible, right? But it's still criticism. It's just criticism, huh?
Like, how are they going to build off of that?
Well, again, that just depends on the approach, because then you get people like us or them who've been pitched thousands of times, and they're just like, nope, that's it. And then they'll know because they've heard it 1,000 times. And people take that personally, oh my gosh. Then you can ask, oh, do you... Again, when you put your ego aside, you can actually ask, like, thank you for your time. Would you mind giving me some feedback so I can do better for next time?
I would suggest listening to the Pitching Bible.
That's a good one, too. I forgot about that book.
They mentioned that, you know, like, going into pitch and, like, you know, being able to... You want to go in and be able to answer questions that you think they might ask. Mm-hmm. And at the end of this... during that book, they were just like, you don't want to fight them on things that they're asking or things that they want. Just be at the end asking, like, okay, well, what did not sell you on the story, you know? Or what was not appealing to you? Where did I lose you? And just kind of learning from it, right?
You'll find that there's so many more people when you're open about that and you actually show that sort of vulnerability. Like, hey, I'm not just an egotistical bastard. Like, they will actually open up and be like, oh, well, this, and this. And in fact, that changed. That when we changed tactics over down at the film market, to where it was like, hey, we do have an idea, or we want to know. It's like, oh, well, ask for, I forget what type of interview.
Was it informational?
Informational interview. And dude, 180. Oh, you want to talk? Yeah, come on in. Doors all open. We sat through so many interviews just getting to know them. And that's literally what a pitch is. They're getting to know you, vice versa, and you're getting to talk about yourself and the story that you have. Because again, and I mentioned this before, where, you know, you don't sell on facts, right? You sell on emotions for the most part. Which is great, because a lot of people try to, and they do a lot of this stuff, and not enough of this stuff. It's like, they're doing a lot of talk, and they're not doing a lot of walk. You know, they're literally running off of emotions, and trying to incite emotions in people, so then it could create some sort of connection, for the most part. For the most part.
Not like as your leading thing, but it's good to do that.
Correct. But then you reinforce with facts to help that, but your main selling point is what elicits a reaction. And we've talked about this too. If you walk out of a movie and you don't feel anything, you've failed as a filmmaker. You're like, you don't ever want that. If people love it, fantastic. If people hate it, fantastic. It made you feel something for it. You go in a movie and come out of it like, nope, whatever. You have failed as a filmmaker. You have failed as a storyteller. Like, that is the worst thing that you can get, is it was okay.
On the plus side, it's like, if people don't like it, they still paid for the ticket, so...
Yep. And you were still
it's not everybody's cup of tea.
Just look at, was it The Room?
Which one?
No, is it Room or The Room? I always forget which one it is. Tommy Wiseau. They had the whole
actor, producer, director.
Star. Yes.
It's funny. I remember watching that down south, like,
well,
in the car.
It has reached a level of, like, epic status where it is the longest running movie in a theater. They were literally showing it every week or so, like, or every weekend. Yeah, down south.
I don't remember that. Oh, yeah. Are you talking about the remake with
Not the remake, no, the original. There was a theater dedicated to that down in somewhere down in LA. Huh?
Rip Theater. Sorry.
Huh? Oh yeah, Rip Theaters. Yeah, yeah, replaced with vertical integration. Anyways, but yeah, they reached epic proportions for that. It's the longest running movie in theaters because it was so horrible, and people connected because it was so horrible. So, dude's still making money off of that because it was bad, right? It made people go like, oh, what the heck? It made them feel something. So, again, like I said, I have not. There are certain people like myself, where if a movie is horrible enough, where it's just like, I don't feel anything. That was Twilight for me. I feel zero for anybody in here. I couldn't continue. I will not sit through a film and just be like, this is zero. all the way freaking through, almost an hour in. Nope, there's no reason for me to be watching it.
You know the
and
only
I left.
way you can make it through a horrible movie is that you have somebody with you and you're just talking. And you're making fun of
Are you
it.
talking about me?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's you.
That was our live reviews for the most part. When it got to boring parts, yeah, if you couldn't tell, I could
And
talk.
I started doing that.
Yeah.
Making lots of comments.
Yeah. And I will make it interesting, and that's the kind of runs back to, like I said, the whole Mystery Science Theater 3000 is they literally just watch these horrible movies and just comment on it, and I was like, I need to do my own version, and that's kind of where it started.
Yeah.
It started with that. Anyways, but yes, having it really come down to story, like that's your biggest thing, and not just your screenwriters out there, but all you indie filmmakers out there need to understand it is a story that you're telling. Now, granted, there are different types of film, where you have even experimental, or say there are a lot of people that I've seen in some of the screenwriting groups where they're so against structure of the classics, whether it be The Hero's Journey or talking about like Robert McKee's story or Save the Cat or anything like. Oh, these systems, they're just so cut and dry and this is horrible for storytelling. It's like they have their own opinion on it, but yes and no. But you still have to have some sort of semblance of what the hell you're trying to tell, right? Because those are still it's a guideline. That's everything. It is a guideline for it. It doesn't say every single thing has to be exactly this, cut and dry. Every single thing is like that. You get to fill in those elements and flip them around if you want. Like what was that? Look at Memento.
Oh yeah, Memento is good. I want to watch the movie now. Thanks a
Yeah,
lot.
good. I haven't watched it in a long time, but it's literally flip flop in time and had it tell a story, an overarching story, and it's linear for the audience to see and how you reveal certain things into it. But even though it was not linear in how you cut it and edited it and told the actual story, because if you did it from beginning to end, that would be way different than how they did it, where it was almost like end to beginning, right? But it still was a climax of the story in our time near the end. Crazy how that works. I think what was it David Mamet I forget what he said. It's like, he said somebody said, and it was somebody in either French theater or somewhere in Europe, and they were like, oh, every movie has a beginning, a middle, and end, but not necessarily in that order. And then he's just like, and that's why like their films usually suck or something like that. And I was like, oh,
French films.
I don't remember what I gotta remember. I gotta find that. I don't know if it was French or somewhere in Europe. And they were like, oh yeah, because it doesn't have to be in those things. It's like, and that's why they usually suck.
French films are something different, like Weekend.
Oh, well, he's not French.
Granted, I thought it was French. It was a French movie.
Godard? Isn't he Italian? I don't know.
Not him. The movie was based in France, wasn't it?
Might have been. That again. I'm just. Some of those things. It's been so long, but it's again. What was the feeling? You have nostalgic feelings for certain things, for movies that you recall.
I have a nostalgic feeling from Weekend. I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah. Like I said, there would be certain people like that. And honestly, I don't know. I might try to look at it through a more mature lens that I have now to try to watch it again. I won't do that for Twilight, though. Because, again, I didn't feel anything for Twilight. Ergo, I will never watch that again. I can't. I don't care if the sequels got better or whatever. They lost me on the first one. I can't. And there's no reason for me to do it. Anyways, but yeah, jeez. I feel like there's so much more that we could talk about with story.
Maybe we can do more of these,
Yeah, we can do more of these. Honestly, I want to get back to writing our book. There was a book that we were writing on the storytelling process for filmmakers. And it combined, how many? We had a whole list of all the systems and webinars and classes that we had taken, purely just on screenwriting and storytelling, and where we reference and why we bring it in here, and the common themes that we've got, and then how we've owned it our own, by ourselves, and wanted to give that out back to everybody else. I'd like to get back to that, actually. I want to do that. So I'm letting you guys know. We will get back to that. So you will see an overarching thing. So where it's like everyone's like, oh, well, how many screenwriting books are out there? And again, it's like we do use structure, and the way that we've designed our system is we had structure when people have, like when we have, say, like writer's block, because writer's block is essentially when your creativity is kind of stunted or stinted, right? You get stuck because where do I go from here? I don't know. But if you refocus on structure, as when you get into those moments, you can always have movement forward.
And writing is rewriting.
So. Writing is rewriting. That's another thing. Like, people don't understand. Everything can change in film. Man, we're in any process. We're in post-production right now for a few films. And it's like, there are people that don't understand, like, you can change things. It changes all the time.
Until
and then
production.
A lot of times they think it like they're taking it personally, or they're not seeing it that way, or they think like it's a personal thing, that when we respond, like, because I'm a very straightforward person, it's like I'll tell you flat out what it is, and sometimes I'll be sarcastic, or sometimes I won't. You won't know, because I'm just that straightforward. If you can't tell when I'm being sarcastic, great.
I'm saying it's until production, then it's only minor changes.
Yes, it's only minor changes, but even in post, you're still making changes, and that goes back to what producers do, and why a lot of indie filmmakers don't understand. A producer is somebody who keeps a project going from beginning, from development or through acquisition, pre-production, through to the end. Sometimes all the way through distro. And yeah, sometimes they don't even get paid to the very end, which is why it's a very tough gig. And you get to the thing is, though, producers get the choice, because they're giving up a lot of their time and effort, and man, like I said, there are so many people that don't even appreciate the stuff. Like, we try to over deliver and everything. They don't appreciate, and a lot of people don't appreciate the things that we put in there. And because it's a whole egotistical thing, right? And it just gets to that point of like, dude, well, you don't understand what it is to be a producer. Whether they're trying to say that they want to be a producer themselves, or they have an idea or whatever, because their ego keeps getting in the way. It's like, man, really?
Think of it as your baby. It needs to survive. It needs to thrive off something, right?
Yep. And when you let it die, don't let your babies die. Just please.
Now, there's adjusting your baby's diet, right?
Yeah. There's adjusting, your baby's diet to be the healthiest and the most successful that it can be. Yeah.
Like I'm referencing baby.
I don't know.
It just makes sense.
No,
it makes sense, though, because it's like you don't want your baby to die, right?
Correct. Now, and there is a thing that is something we've talked about before. It's called Kill Your Darlings. And that is literally what that means is not as bad as you think it is. That means if you're too stuck on a single concept or single moment, it can actually be detrimental to the overall film in the end. And just because it doesn't fit in. And if you can get into the habit of doing that and understanding, like, hey, that was a great idea, and man, I really want to film it that way, but it's not conducive to this story, and it doesn't fit anymore, then let it go. If you can do that, you will have much more creative freedom for that. Because that whole idea of like, oh yeah, just having creative freedom, that doesn't mean like you're just sticking into one. And people are like, oh, but those people, they have the vision, they stick to it. It's just like, all these auteurs, like, yeah, they do. And how many more movies of theirs do you know of? That you've heard of the names, right? How many of their films are terrible? Spielberg has terrible films. Tarantino has terrible films. It's like,
what is his name?
A lot of them, like all these people, all these auteurs, you say, oh, they did great things. They also have horrible things that they've made.
Del Toro,
yeah, Guillermo del Toro. Right? You can name off certain films that they've done. Fantastic, because they enjoyed it. But how many horrible films did they make in the process? It is a process. But being able to kill your darlings, right? But even recreate it or try to, if you're gonna stick to your guns on this, hey, it was a flop. Oh, this one, hey, it was a flop. Hey, this one, massive success. Now everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's such a great guy. Oh, did you see this other one? And now they have a new lens on them, and they go, oh, well, after I've watched this great movie that they did, and I was like, oh, it's so artistic, but I'll never watch it again. That's the thing. That is the thing. There's so much more to humans and people and how we connect to art and what its role plays in there. But master your craft. That's been a main one. If you're literally in entertainment, you're telling a story. You're not telling a moment. You're not telling, unless it's a short film or a commercial. Yeah, your main goal is to entertain, right? Elicit some sort of emotion. That's what your goal is as filmmakers, as indie filmmakers.
As storytellers.
As storytellers. Or even if you're not, whether you're an actor, whether you're a director, whether you're a DP, whether you're a sound editor, every single piece and part comes together. This is why, again, film is so hard to do, because it is a culmination of so many people's work. Sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of people's work to make a piece of entertainment to elicit emotion that people will enjoy or hate or whatever, to feel something. That's your goal. And if you don't have a story to build on for that, you don't got anything for it. And again, yeah.
Just focusing on your story, really hone down, and if you need a break, take a break, but get back into it.
Yeah. So, that's, you have a film idea? Fantastic. But what's the story? Really start thinking into that. And if you guys like these videos that we're doing, hit the subscribe button, hit that, and give us a like. And then you can support us. You can buy our RPG IRL shirts.
It's so dark. Oh, it's my hair.
I'm pretty sure I put it in the description this time. But you can buy our RPG IRL shirts at the Water Killsman. Huh?
What is yours?
That's Rogue. It's one of my favorites. Rogue and Necromancer are actually my two favorites out of there. But yeah, it's you can buy our RPG IRL shirts at thewanderkillsman.com/shop. Again, link down in the description. Or you can also become a member. You can become a hooligan yourself at our Patreon, patreon.com/hidehooliganfilms.
With exclusive content, right?
With which we started dropping more exclusive content. We even dropped the poster for one of our short films, our first action film, that is available on there. So if you want to see some of those things and behind the scenes stuff that we do, become a member. Become a hooligan. You can do it. Alright, yes. And again, it's Thursday, so
we'll see you Tuesday, right? Next week.
Tuesday next week. Every Tuesday, Thursday at noon Pacific Standard Time. We'll see you guys later.
Later.